Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's Thursday with AARP Wisconsin show. I am Amber Miller with AARP Wisconsin, and also your hostess every week for this show. So, of course, we before we get started with our guest today, please remember to visit the AARP Wisconsin website at aarp.org/wi. This will give you information on upcoming events. It'll give you information on teletown halls, all the good stuff, and also an opportunity to register for any upcoming virtual events. Also, please remember the Community Connections Initiative. If you go to that website below, there's information on local possible volunteer opportunities that you can either join or create within your community. So it's all about helping your local neighbor. And then also the Friendly Voice Initiative, there's information on that. And of course, it's free, no cost, open to all ages, but you can request one of our trained volunteers, AARP volunteers, to call you. It could be daily, weekly, monthly, if you're just looking for a friendly voice on the other end. And the phone number otherwise is 1-888-281-0145. And you can request a phone call for yourself or for a loved one. Even though we are in a virtual world right now, we're always looking for amazing volunteers to join the AARP Wisconsin team. So if you're interested in technology or presenting, public speaking, advocacy, fraud, we have a lot of opportunities available. For more information, you could go below to aarp.org/I want, and then the number 2. So I want to volunteer. There'll be additional information that you can review, and then also the online application that you can complete. And we're excited to announce that the winners for the 2021 AARP Livable Community Challenge have been announced. And out of the 224 winners, we had 6 winners come to the state of Wisconsin. So Creative Downtown Appleton, they received a grant to install a parklet. The Farmery out of Green Bay, it's aquaponics farming upgrade for $15,000. The Chilton Public Library, they received about $18,000 for a Spanish language story walk. The City of La Crosse Planning Department, accessibility audits and resources for around $11,000. The City of Madison, which is for the Leopold Neighborhood Trail enhancements. And then lastly, the City of Ashland, it's all about trail seeding, and they received about $10,000 for a total of, if I'm not mistaken, about $67,000 is coming back to the state of Wisconsin to improve communities, cities, counties. So if you happen to live in any of these areas or know of somebody, keep an eye out for some additional media if you have not done so already. You'll also see some of the winners probably in the next couple months on the show, so you can hear more about their winning grant. So congratulations to all of the grantees throughout the United States, but especially through the state of Wisconsin. So we're excited to have our guest today. As some of you might know or might not know, it is National Farmers Market Week, which runs from August 1st to the 7th, which is a great opportunity to show the nation how much we value the markets that bring so much value to our community. So today's guest is Mr. Alfonso Morales, and he's a professor of planning and landscape architect at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and also the managing director of Farm to Facts, which we're going to be focusing on a lot today. His research interests include social science theory and methods, organizations, food systems, public markets, and street vendors. Also, applied research supports nonprofit organizations, and he co-created the farmtofacts.org toolkit for farmer market managers. So great to have you with us today, Alfonso.
Thank you so much, Amber. I can't tell you how appreciative I was to you and Darren, of course, as well, for the invitation to join you. And let me echo your congratulations to the market, to the organizations that were beneficiaries of that funding. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And so, Alfonso, I have a feeling a lot of people didn't know that it was National Farmers Market Week. So let's say how great is that? But can you talk a little bit about, before we kind of get into some of the questions, can you just talk about what is a farmer's market if some people are like, I don't know if I have that in my area?
Sure, sure. Farmers markets are found, there's about 10,000 of them, between 9 and 10,000 of them around the United States. And that does not count things like road stands. So you come across, driving around rural Wisconsin, you can find a sign says corn for sale. That does not count as a farmer's market. But those are important activities. Ask the farmers. I grew up on a farm in New Mexico, and ask the farmers if they don't like that bucket of dollar bills that comes at the end of a week or a month, you know. And
Absolutely.
so farmers market is typically something that's defined as two or more vendors of locally produced food, uh, some occupying a regular location. That's a kind of a typical ballpark definition. Then different jurisdictions refine that definition in different ways. So here in Wisconsin, we require for a market at a state facility to be, for the vendors to be from Wisconsin. Not all markets do that, but marketplaces at state facilities like the Dane County downtown Wisconsin, or the uh, um, other markets on
Yeah.
state facilities. There we go.
Okay, great. And so I love farmers markets. I love indoor, outdoor ones. I'll try to go to as many as I can. So people think about buying groceries just at their local store. So what's the difference, or what is different about the farmers market compared to a grocery store?
So that's a really good question, Amber. There's a few differences. Now, people may not have known it, but for hundreds of years, for even thousands of years, food has traveled nationally and internationally. The spice roads that we learned about when we were in elementary school, right, in high school. So food has traveled forever across long distances. The big difference between a grocery store and a farmer's market is that the farmer's market is selling very locally produced foods, locally produced, locally processed. So the jellies and jams and whatnot, for instance. So it's very, very local. Not all the food from the grocery store can be said to be that local as what you find in a farmer's market. The big consequence of that, of course, is the money is local. The dollars spent at the farmer's market tend to remain in the community. The dollars spent at the grocery store, while they're important employers, obviously, there's a lot of important things about grocery stores. We certainly need them. That's where most food is purchased, right? But the dollars tend to be more diffusely spread across the country or even the world.
So people, that it's similar to like a local small retail shop, how we really push like the, shop local as much as you can, not anti big box, but we're pro little box. But so it's kind of the same concept of when you go to the farmers market and you're purchasing the jelly, the jams, the fresh produce, about how important it is that that money stays in the local community.
That's right, the local community, and then the second part is the community, right? So there's the economic part, and then there's the community part. One of the great things about ARP is this livable communities emphasis, right? And I'm sure
Yes.
we'll talk about that in a
Yes.
little bit. But the way we build community is through interactions. And people have all kinds of interactions at farmers markets that they don't necessarily have at grocery stores. You get a chance to learn things at farmers markets through information that people put there, from the county health provider or a religious organization or a veterans group or whoever it might be that's advertising or seeking opportunities to interact with other folks in the community.
Community. And it is a really great gathering space. I know it's a little probably different with COVID now, but to be outdoors and interact, meet local small business owners, I think is great. Can you tell us a little bit more about Farm to Facts? And I think we might even be able to maybe bring up the website, or at least we have the website below. If you could talk a little bit about that, Alfonso, please.
Sure, you bet. So for 25 years, I've been a professor around 3 different universities here in the country. And when I came here to Wisconsin, I noticed the enormous interest in local foods. And people reached out to me a lot. How can I do this? How can we do this? How do we tell our city council about the important work we're doing? How do we tell our county health folks about the important food security work we're doing. How do we message? And so I was very busy. I was very busy.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I have to help people do it themselves.
Yeah.
I have to help people become citizen scientists.
Mm.
And the way to become a citizen scientist is to take the good knowledge and the good sense that a person has in their day-to-day life and apply that to a particular problem. And for us, it was farmers markets. So I created this toolkit, this software toolkit, using USDA federal grant money to help farmers market managers in the U.S. and Canada, around the U.S. and Canada, determine what they want to learn about their market, how they want to make decisions about their market, and how they want to report that information to their stakeholders. So collect data, analyze data, report data. That's what our toolkit helps farmers market managers do. And it's all kinds of data: ecological impact, economic impact, social impact, whatever is important in the local community.
And Alfonso, for this website, even though maybe the person that wants to read information or visit your website, if they're not really attached to a farmer's market, is there information on there that might be of interest to them?
So I think that yes, in a word, yes. If they look at the blog, there's more than 50 blogs about a whole host of different subjects that folks would be interested in. Everything from social and racial equity to economic work to ecological variables to I hope folks can see some of the titles here. Farm to Facts visit, data collection at the Brownsville Farmers Market. That's Brownsville, Texas. They are members of our organization. And children experiencing food insecurity due to COVID. And I think that may even reference work we did here in Wisconsin to support food security around the state, in particular in the Brown Deer Farmers Market, just there north of Milwaukee. So there's a whole host of things. Increasing sustainability and equity with our new ecosystem services tool that helps both farmers and farmers market managers report on the variety of benefits they're producing, not just good food, right?
Yeah.
But the important ecosystem services.
And Alfonso, it looks like we have a question from one of our viewers. We'll pop that up on the screen.
I'm so glad. Thank you.
Thank you, we viewer. Oh, I'm so sorry. There's an Amber Alert. That's really loud. So is food sold at farmers market required to be organic or free from pesticide sprays?
That's a great question, Jim. Sure do appreciate it. The answer in a word is no. However, that said, it depends on the market. There are markets. So in Kansas City, Missouri, or in Kansas City, Kansas, there's a market that requires all the vendors to be able to demonstrate that they're pesticide-free and organic or better. There's a lot of different organic standards, and there's USDA organic standards are not necessarily the best standards out there. So there's a variety so from place to place. When the market manager and the vendors agree to adhere to a particular standard, then they self-regulate. And it's very exciting. It's always interesting. Great question, Jim.
Thank you. Alfonso, when you were talking about like sustainability, and I was thinking about food deserts.
Oh, yeah.
And not, if you could maybe explain what a food desert is for some of our viewers who might not know what that is, and the importance of farmers markets in food deserts.
Absolutely. Great question. So what a food desert is geography that doesn't have a grocery store within it. And by geography, in a rural place, it might be 30 or 40 square miles. You might have to drive more than a half an hour to get to a grocery store. So that would be considered a food desert. And the reason we have food deserts, and in an urban area, it might look very different. A food desert would be a place that you can't get to in a half-hour walk. That an elderly person, in a casual walk, can't go in less than 20 minutes, I think is what the actual standard is. So it's about a mile, more or less. And there's lots of food deserts in urban areas where you can't get access to fresh, healthy produce. And the reason, of course, for that is over the years, different grocery stores pulled out of urban areas and pulled out of rural areas because it was very difficult to transport. It was economically infeasible, and insurance rates were going up. And so they just pulled out. I've written about this problem if somebody would like to read an article about it. Now, this is opposed to food swamps. I'm very fortunate. I live here in the west side of Madison, the near west side of Madison. Within a mile and a half of my house, within a 20-minute walk of my house, there's 4 grocery stores and at least 2 farmers markets.
Wow.
I live in a food swamp.
Yes.
And people use that language, food swamp, to describe places that are just full of good food options.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I reside in Milwaukee and came from a world of economic development before I came to AARP. And in Milwaukee, there's Harambe/Bronzeville, and it was a food desert. And I loved, there was a local grocery store that opened, but also now they have a farmer's market and bringing fresh fruits and vegetables, because otherwise you had no chance of getting any fresh food. You can maybe visit the local chain pharmacy and hope maybe that they have some unprocessed food. But I love that farmers markets, no matter big or small, but they make such a big impact in the community.
They do across Wisconsin. Farm to Facts has worked with markets all over the state. Little markets, 8, 9 vendors. Big markets, Fond du Lac, Wapaka, Fondy Food Center there in Milwaukee, Brown Deer there north of Milwaukee, just etc. So we are both in my professional capacity as a professor and as in my capacity in my lab, my lab at the university, the students and faculty who work on the lab. This is a great interest of ours, is working with food security and making healthy food available as broadly as possible, because that has those economic and community positive benefits.
Absolutely. And Darren, do you think we could bring up the 8 domains? So when we think about farmers market, we talked about, community and what it can bring towards like food deserts. And so the 8 domains of livability, this is through our, age-friendly network. We have about 7 communities through the state of Wisconsin. And Alfonso, I can read them too, just in case it's a little small.
I can see them just fine, Amber.
You can. Okay, perfect.
I can.
So when you're looking at the 8 domains, Alfonso, what are your thoughts on how some of the domains relate to, food security and farmers markets? What are your thoughts?
Oh my goodness, Amber. Tell you what, if a listener is out there, ask them to pick one. Or you just pick one, and I'll tell you, because I have all kinds of examples for all 8 of these.
Okay, I'm going to pick outdoor spaces and buildings, which is the blue bubble.
Great. That's a great place to begin. First of all, farmers markets, right? In Wisconsin, we have a great seasonal opportunity for farmers markets. Here in Dane County, there are about 35. So any given day of the week outside, you can get to a farmer's market. It's just wonderful. And what do you have outside? It's beautiful, right? Your senses are engaged, right? With the sun and the clouds and the breeze and the wondering if it's going to rain in an hour or in a day, So the outdoor space itself is can often be at farmers markets a very engaging place and a wonderful place to spend some time with your friends or family. So pick another one.
Okay. Before we get to our next question, I'm going to do, and because I don't have good eyes like you, Alfonso, I'm going to do social participation, which is the green bubble.
Sure, absolutely. Social participation is super important. This is a great opportunity. Farmers markets and local foods are a great opportunity for folks to get together and work on behalf of their community. Great volunteer opportunities at farmers markets, whether it's with data collection to help the farmers market do decision making, or any number of other things. You hear music, or you have programming set up. Farmers market managers need help telling the musicians or the information providers where to go, what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to go when they're finished. There's
Right.
just social participation around community building is super important. Religious organizations, churches, synagogues, mosques, they can show up and have their flea markets and garage sales. I've seen all kinds of social participation.
Yeah.
The county health departments go and provide information at farmers markets. There's a variety of things. Go ahead, though. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. No, I agree with you. I love how that you're giving a bigger vision of farmers markets than just like, oh, I'm going to go there and buy some tomatoes and kind of leave, and make it more of like a destination. So we're going to pull up Sam's question. So Sam is asking, are there generally limits to the size of producer that can sell at a farmer's market?
That's a great question, Sam. That's a great question. It's a sort of the same answer as I gave before. In a word, no. But depending on the market, there are limits. So many farmers markets will have one of two kinds of limits. One kind of limit is simply on the space that they provide. So a farmers market manager and the vendors, in their bylaws or in their informal organizational principles, they agree that no vendor will have more than 10 feet, right? Or 20 feet to sell from. So there's that kind of limit. Now, I suspect the kind of limit you mean is the size of the producer, right? Is the producer coming from a 400-acre farm, or even a 28, let's just say a 20-acre berry farm. 20 acres of berries is a lot of berries. So do we admit that person and not the 400-acre corn producer? So there's a lot of those debates go on across markets every year, all kinds of debates. And you don't see uniformity in this regard. Folks are adaptable to their local context. There are some farmers markets that need vendors, and so they would welcome everybody. Then after a few years, they might say, oh, I'm so sorry, I welcomed everybody because now I've got to live with that.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. We do have a comment from Arlene. She's saying, what a great resource. Can't wait to check it out, which she's referencing to the website. So before, I'm going to ask you one more question, Alfonso, and then I kind of want you to maybe do a wrap up a little bit more of talking about the website, just because I want to make sure that people know about the resource. So we talked a lot about how the farmers market brings so much value to the community and togetherness, and people can buy fresh whatever they want. How does the farmers market benefit the actual farmers?
Oh my goodness, yes. Direct market sales are very important. A lot of these farmers are in the business, like community supported agriculture farmers. They're in the business of direct sales. The bulk of their income is often from their markets that they sell at. One farmer might sell at 4 or 5 different markets every day of the week, with a couple of days break in between, preparing, harvesting and preparing goods for sale. So same with the craft vendors, sales of jellies and jams and whatnot. This can be a nice side income and very much an important main income, depending upon just how big the outfit gets, how big a business it is. Go ahead. So can I say one other quick
thing? Please do. Yeah.
Arlene, I'm so glad you said what a great resource, but I just want you to know that you're a great resource. The folks on this call are important resources into these community organizations. So if you have an interest in local food, I would urge you to talk to your local farmers market manager and see if they could use a volunteer for a day or a year or 10 years. If you like what you see on that webpage, please support us. We are an organization of part of the University of Wisconsin, and I say forward the Wisconsin idea. But I can tell you that we're not paid by the university. So this work, I get supported through membership fees of farmers market managers and through donations from the community. So if you're, and through grant writing, So if you're willing to support us, we appreciate your resources as well.
Great. Alfonso, A, I want to say I love the topic. B, you have the most energy of any person I've ever interviewed, which I appreciate around this time of the day when you're like, oh, but your passion of food security, food deserts, farmers markets. I really appreciate it and I admire all that you do. And we'll make sure to put additional resources in the notes on Facebook and our YouTube if you want to check out additional information, maybe on articles or literature that Alfonso wrote. But I want to thank you so much. Any last words for our viewing audience?
Oh, goodness. Amber, it's been a delight to be with you. I'm very glad to have been part of this. I'm a member of ARP myself.
Ooh, thank you.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, I'm 60 years old. I get to be a member. So,
yeah, you can definitely be, and you're a young 60, so we just got to embrace it.
Okay,
Absolutely.
There we go. And so I just want to say thanks to all the listeners. Y'all don't hesitate to reach out if you've got an interest that you think that I or the students in my lab can be supportive of. Let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Alfonso. We appreciate it. We look forward to having you on a future show. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, likewise. Take care, folks.
Thank you, Alfonso.
Bye-bye.
So before we wrap up the show, of course, I always have some announcements. So we do have some upcoming events that might be of interest to you, and all are virtual. So we have Movies for Grown-Ups coming up August 6th. The movie It's Not a Burden. August 10th, AARP presents a conversation with Jake Tapper. The 11th, they're going to be all talking about the genius of Toni Morrison. And the 12th, if you're interested in starting your own business after the age of 50, but you're not sure where to start, the Fox Valley Technical College is actually doing a virtual workshop on that. So that could be something that if you're interested in. All of these, you do have to pre-register. You can visit the AARP Wisconsin website or call 1-877-926-8300. Small Dollar Big Impact. Once again, this is a grant program launched last year through AARP Wisconsin for grants up to $1,000. This could be a community, a neighborhood association, a municipality, a nonprofit. If you have a really cool, creative, innovative idea that you would like to do within your community, please apply. We do have an application that's open until August 18th. All information, including past winners, can be found at www.aarp.org/WI and then SDBI, which stands for Small Dollar Big Impact. For next week's show, we will be joined by our AARP Wisconsin advocacy team. So Lisa and Helen always bring just valuable information to the show, so we will have them on next Thursday. You can visit us for the live show here on Facebook.com or YouTube next Thursday at noon. So we appreciate you being here today. Once again, if you have additional questions or concerns, please always contact the AARP Wisconsin office. We are here to help. So until next Thursday, stay safe.